Your children called you useless and abandoned you on the highway. But fate had a plan. Dorothy Mae Henderson felt the wheels of her chair stop on the hot asphalt of the state highway, cutting through the interior of Tennessee. The engine of her children's car was still rumbling behind her when she heard the words that would forever echo in her memory. "Now you're on your own, Mother. We've already done too much for a useless person like you," said Brian, her eldest son, tossing the brown leather suitcase beside the wheelchair. "That's right. You're nothing but an expense and good for nothing. You're a dead weight we can't bear anymore," added Sharon, the middle child, without even looking at her mother. The third child, Kevin, remained silent in the back seat, only lowering his eyes when Dorothy tried to catch his gaze through the window. The car sped off, kicking up a cloud of red dust, leaving the 72-year-old woman alone on the roadside of the highway, connecting Nashville to Franklin. Dorothy stood still for a few minutes, still unable to believe what had happened. Her hands trembled on the wheels of the chair as she processed the reality. For 50 years she had dedicated her life to those 3 children, working day and night as a seamstress to pay for their education, giving up her own dreams so they could have a better life. The sound of an approaching truck brought her back to reality. The vehicle slowed down and stopped a few yards ahead. A dark-haired man, about 40 years old, got out of the cab and walked toward her. "Good afternoon, ma'am. Are you all right? What are you doing out here alone on this road?" asked James, the truck driver, removing his cap to reveal hair tousled with sweat. "My children, they left me here," Dorothy managed to reply, her voice choked. James looked around, trying to understand the situation. There were no houses nearby, just the parched scrubland stretching as far as the eye could see. The road was not busy, especially at that time of the afternoon, when the sun beat down mercilessly. "What do you mean they left you here? That can't be right," he said, crouching down to her level. Dorothy briefly recounted what had happened, omitting the most painful details. James shook his head, visibly upset by the situation. He offered her a ride to the next town about 30 kilometers away, helping her into the truck bed along with the wheelchair and suitcase. During the journey, Dorothy watched the arid landscape through the cab window. James tried to make conversation, asking about her family and trying to understand more about what had happened. She answered evasively, still processing the pain of rejection. "Do you have somewhere to go in town?" James asked as they approached the first gas station. "I'll figure something out, don't worry, you've already helped me so much," replied Dorothy, not wanting to be a burden to anyone else. James wasn't convinced by her answer, but respected her wish not to talk about it. He left her at the Franklin bus station, a small bustling building that served as a meeting point for locals. Dorothy sat in her chair, watching the comings and goings of people. There were families saying goodbye, young people returning from studies in big cities, elderly folks visiting relatives. Everyone seemed to have a place to go except her. She tried to call some acquaintances, using the public phone, but found she didn't have enough coins. When she finally managed to make a call, the person on the other end informed her that her cell phone number was out of service. Brian had cancelled the plan, severing another link that connected her to the world. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The day gave way to night, and Dorothy realized she had no options. Her savings consisted of 47 Rs she kept in her pocket, not enough for a hotel room. The cleaning staff member, a black woman around 60 years old named Lorraine, noticed she hadn't moved from the same spot for hours. "Are you waiting for someone?" Lorraine asked, holding a broom and looking concerned. "Actually, I have nowhere to go," Dorothy admitted, finally breaking the silence she'd kept since the afternoon. Lorraine stopped sweeping and came closer. She had worked at the bus station for over 20 years and had seen it all, but this woman's situation touched her especially. After hearing the story, she decided to bend the rules and let Dorothy spend the night on a bench in the waiting area, promising to talk to the guard to look the other way. During the night, while trying to sleep on the uncomfortable bench, Dorothy overheard a conversation between 2 men waiting for the 5 a.m. bus. They talked about a place called St. Michael's Home, describing it as a place where the elderly were mistreated and their resources drained by the administrators. "The address is 428 Blossom Street. My neighbor sent her mother-in-law there, and now can't even speak with her, one man said. Dorothy froze. That was exactly the address of the home where her children wanted to place her before deciding to abandon her on the road. Apparently, they had searched for the cheapest possible place without caring about the conditions or reputation of the facility. When dawn broke, Lorraine brought Dorothy coffee and a buttered roll. The two talked about life, finding common ground. Lorraine had also raised children alone after being widowed young, working various jobs to support them. "Where are your children now?" Dorothy asked. "The oldest lives in New York, works at a bank. The other went to Miami, he's a doctor. They call from time to time, but each has their own life," Lorraine replied, a tone of melancholy in her voice. "At least they didn't abandon you on a road," Dorothy murmured. "That's true. What yours did is unforgivable in God's eyes," Lorraine agreed, shaking her head with indignation. Around 9 in the morning, a young brunette woman of about 25 arrived to work at the bus station's snack bar. She noticed Dorothy's presence and asked Lorraine about the situation. After hearing the explanation, the young woman approached the lady. "My name is Jennifer. Lorraine told me what happened to you." "That's a disgrace," she said, sitting on the bench beside her. Jennifer carried a worn backpack and wore a simple snack bar uniform. Her eyes showed a maturity beyond her years, the result of facing hardships from a very young age. "Thank you for your kindness, dear. I don't want to bother anyone," Dorothy replied. "You're not bothering anyone. It's just that your story reminds me of my own. I was also rejected by my family when I needed them," Jennifer revealed. During her work break, Jennifer told her story. She had gotten pregnant at 17, and her parents kicked her out, saying she had dishonored the family. She had to fend for herself, working various jobs while raising her son, who was now 7 years old. "My son Tyler is sick at home today, high fever and cough. I wanted to take him to the doctor, but I don't have money for a private appointment, and the health center only has openings next week," Jennifer said, the worry clear on her face. Dorothy watched the young mother struggling to hold back tears. Without a second thought, she took the 47 rials from her pocket and handed it to Jennifer. "Take this. Take your boy to the doctor now," said Dorothy. "I can't accept that, Mom." "That's all the money you have," protested Jennifer. "Yes, you can. I raised 3 children and know a mother's worry. Besides, you need it more than I do," insisted Dorothy. Jennifer took the money with teary eyes, promising to pay it back as soon as possible. Dorothy just smiled and said it wasn't necessary. That spontaneous gesture created a special connection between the two women. When Jennifer returned from the doctor late that afternoon, she was holding Tyler by the hand. The boy, though still pale from the fever, had improved with the medicine prescribed by the doctor. He looked at Dorothy with curiosity and hid behind his mother. "Tyler, this is Mrs. Dorothy. She helped us today," said Jennifer, bending down to her son's level. "Hi, Grandma," said the boy shyly, using the term he reserved for older ladies. Dorothy's heart swelled with emotion upon hearing that little word. It had been years since she'd been called Grandma, as her children had never given her grandchildren or even mentioned starting families. "Hi, sweetheart, how are you feeling?" replied Dorothy, reaching out her hand to him. Tyler lost his shyness and approached the wheelchair, fascinated by the wheels and mechanisms. Dorothy explained how it worked and even let him take a short ride on her lap, making the boy laugh with joy. Jennifer watched the scene with a smile on her face. It had been a long time since she'd seen Tyler so excited and affectionate with someone. The connection between him and Dorothy was instant and genuine. "Mrs. Dorothy, I know it's quite bold, but would you like to have dinner at our place tonight? It's very simple, but I have a sofa where you can rest more comfortably than here," offered Jennifer. Dorothy hesitated, not wanting to be another burden for the young woman who already faced so many hardships. But the sincerity of the invitation and the joy in Tyler's eyes convinced her. "If it's not a bother, I accept. I promise I'll sort out my life tomorrow," replied Dorothy. "It's no bother at all. In fact, Tyler and I are happy to have company," said Jennifer, genuinely pleased at the prospect. Jennifer's house was in a modest neighborhood on the outskirts of Franklin, known as Hope Heights. It was a small 2-room structure with an integrated living kitchen area and 1 bedroom, with a tiny bathroom in the back. Despite its simplicity, everything was clean and tidy. Tyler helped push the wheelchair along the neighborhood's dirt roads, excited to show the way to his new friend. The neighbors watched curiously as this well-dressed lady arrived in Jennifer's company. "Mom, is Grandma going to live with us?" asked Tyler while Jennifer prepared dinner. "No, son, she's just visiting. Grandma Dorothy has her own home," explained Jennifer, though she knew the situation was more complicated. "But I want her to live here. She's nice," insisted the boy. Dorothy was moved by the child's spontaneity. During the simple dinner of rice, beans, and fried eggs, they talked about various topics. Tyler told them about school, his struggles with math, and how much he loved to draw. "I can help you with your studies, if your mother allows," offered Dorothy. "I was an elementary school teacher for many years before I got married." "Really? Can you teach me those hard math problems?" asked Tyler, excited. "Of course I can. Math was my favorite subject to teach," replied Dorothy, feeling useful for the first time in a long while. That night, while Tyler slept in the bedroom and the two women talked in the living room, Jennifer asked about Dorothy's family. The lady shared more details about her life dedicated to her children, the sacrifices she made, and the ingratitude she received in return. "Did you raise them alone too?" asked Jennifer. "No, my husband helped me until Tyler turned 15. Then he had a heart attack and passed away. After that, it was just me and the three of them," explained Dorothy. "And even so, they did that to you." Jennifer couldn't understand such cruelty. "It seems the more we do for our children, the less they appreciate it. They always thought I was obligated to do all that," reflected Dorothy, her voice filled with sorrow. "Well, here in this house you are very welcome. Tyler has already grown fond of you, and so have I," said Jennifer sincerely. The next morning, Dorothy woke up early and helped Tyler get ready for school. She gently combed the boy's hair and checked if he had brushed his teeth properly. Tiny gestures that made a huge difference in Jennifer's hectic morning routine. "Thank you, Mrs. Dorothy. Tyler has never been so obedient when getting ready," said Jennifer, impressed. "It's just that he's a well-behaved boy. He just needed a little attention," replied Dorothy. After Tyler left for school and Jennifer went to work, Dorothy was alone in the small house, tidying up a few details and thinking about her situation. She couldn't stay there forever, being a burden to that young woman who already had so many struggles. Around noon, while sitting on the porch watching the street activity, a neighbor approached. It was a lady about 50 years old named Barbara who lived next door. "Are you related to Jennifer?" asked Barbara curiously. "No, I'm just a friend," replied Dorothy diplomatically. "It's good that she has company. That girl suffers a lot raising Tyler alone. The child's father never gave a penny," commented Barbara, clearly interested in learning more details. Dorothy didn't feel comfortable sharing information about Jennifer, so she only confirmed that she was a good person. Barbara persisted a bit more with questions, but then gave up and returned to her house. In the late afternoon, Tyler came running from school toward the house, eager to see Dorothy. He brought a sheet of math exercises that needed to be done for the next day. "Grandma Dorothy, can you help me with my homework?" he asked, using again the affectionate term that deeply moved the lady. "Of course I can, my dear. Let's see what you need to learn," said Dorothy, putting on her glasses and examining the exercises. For 2 hours, she patiently taught Tyler how to solve addition and subtraction problems, using teaching methods she had learned during her years as a teacher. The boy showed ease in learning and felt proud when he got the calculations right. "You're very smart, Tyler. You just needed someone to explain it properly," praised Dorothy. "Why doesn't my teacher explain it like this?" asked the boy. "She probably has many students to take care of. Here at home it's easier because I can give attention only to you," explained Dorothy. When Jennifer arrived from work, she found Tyler finishing all his assignments with Dorothy's help. It was the first time in a long while that he completed all his tasks without fights or tears. "Tyler never wanted to do homework. You have a special gift," said Jennifer, amazed. "He's a bright child. He just needs patience and affection," replied Dorothy. During dinner, Tyler excitedly told about everything he had learned with Dorothy. He talked about numbers as if they were characters in a story, a result of the playful way she had taught the math concepts. "Mom, Can Grandma Dorothy stay here for more days? Asked Tyler. Jennifer looked at Dorothy, who felt awkward with the boy's direct question. The young mother noticed the awkwardness and changed the subject, promising to talk about it later. That night, after Tyler fell asleep, the two women had a frank conversation about the situation. Jennifer admitted that Dorothy's presence was making a huge difference in their lives, but she also understood that the woman couldn't stay there indefinitely. "I know I'm being inconvenient, my dear. Tomorrow I'll look for a solution," said Dorothy. "You're not being inconvenient at all. In fact, it's the opposite. For the first time in years, Tyler is excited to do his homework, and well, it's nice to have an adult conversation when I get home," admitted Jennifer. "But I can't stay here being another mouth to feed. You already have enough difficulties," insisted Dorothy. "What if we made a partnership? You help me with Tyler, and I help you with other things. It doesn't have to be permanent, but at least until you decide what you want to do," suggested Jennifer. The proposal deeply touched Dorothy. It had been a long time since she felt useful or wanted anywhere. The idea of being able to contribute in some way, even in her vulnerable situation, rekindled a spark of hope in her heart. "Are you sure?" "I don't want you to regret it later," said Dorothy, still hesitant. "I'm sure. Tyler has already adopted you as his grandmother, and honestly, I'd also like to have someone like you around," replied Jennifer sincerely. That night, Dorothy slept better than she had in months. For the first time since being abandoned on the road, she felt she had found a place where her presence was valued and wanted. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. The next morning, while Jennifer was at work and Tyler at school, Dorothy decided to explore the Hope Heights neighborhood. Pushing her own wheelchair along the dirt streets, she observed the simple but dignified life of the residents. The neighborhood consisted mainly of small houses of working people. There was a bakery, a pharmacy, a small market, and a public school. People greeted each other on the street and seemed to have known each other for years. During her walk, Dorothy passed by the school where Tyler studied. It was recess time and she could see him playing in the yard with other children. The boy spotted her through the fence and ran to greet her. "Grandma Dorothy, what are you doing here?" asked Tyler excitedly. "I was getting to know the neighborhood. How's your class going today?" replied Dorothy. "Really easy. The math you taught me yesterday helped a lot. The teacher even praised me," Tyler said proudly. One of the teachers approached, curious to know who this woman was that Tyler called grandmother. Dorothy introduced herself as a family friend and briefly talked about the boy's progress in his studies. "Tyler is a smart boy, but he had trouble concentrating. In recent days, he's been much more focused," commented the teacher. "He just needed a little more attention at home," Dorothy explained modestly. When she returned to Jennifer's house, Dorothy found Barbara, the curious neighbor, waiting for her on the porch. The woman seemed agitated and eager to talk. "Mrs. Dorothy, I need to speak with you about something important," said Barbara in a conspiratorial tone. "What happened?" asked Dorothy, worried. "Last night, 2 men came by here asking about a woman in a wheelchair. They said she had disappeared and that her family was looking for her," Barbara reported. Dorothy's heart raced. Her children had found her, or at least were close. The feeling of peace she had experienced in recent days vanished instantly. "What did these men look like?" asked Dorothy, trying to stay calm. "One was tall and thin, the other shorter and chubby. They said they were her sons. The thin one seemed nervous, but the chubby one was really angry," described Barbara. From the description, Dorothy recognized Brian and Kevin, 2 of her sons. Apparently, they had discovered her whereabouts somehow and were looking for her in the neighborhood. "What did you tell them?" asked Dorothy apprehensively. "I said I hadn't seen any lady in a wheelchair around here. I didn't like their attitude, so I decided to lie," admitted Barbara. "Thank you for that." "Actually, I'd rather not talk to them right now," said Dorothy, relieved by her neighbor's attitude. "Did you have some trouble with your sons?" asked Barbara, growing more curious. Dorothy hesitated about how much she should share. She decided to be honest, since Barbara had protected her without even knowing the full situation. "They abandoned me on the road a few days ago. They said I was useless and they didn't want to support me anymore," revealed Dorothy, her voice choked. Jesus Christ! What kind of sons do that to their own mother? Exclaimed Barbara, horrified. I don't understand either. I dedicated my whole life to them, sighed Dorothy. Barbara became so outraged that she decided to alert other neighbors about the situation. Within hours, the story spread through Hope Heights, causing widespread anger among the residents. When Jennifer arrived from work, she already knew what had happened through co-workers who lived in the neighborhood. She found Dorothy visibly shaken and worried about the possibility of being found by her sons. Mrs. Henderson, you don't need to worry. Nobody here will turn you over to people who've harmed you, reassured Jennifer. But I don't want to cause trouble for you all. If they find out I'm here, they could cause complications, said Dorothy. What complications? You're a free person and can stay wherever you want. They have no right to force anything, argued Jennifer. Tyler arrived from school in the middle of the conversation and sensed something was wrong. When he learned that Grandma Dorothy's mean sons were looking for her, he became genuinely concerned. Are they going to take Grandma away? Asked Tyler, his eyes filled with tears. Nobody will take Grandma Dorothy if she doesn't want to go, promised Jennifer, hugging her son. Why are Grandma's sons mean, Mom? Asked Tyler, unable to understand how children could harm their mothers. The boy's innocent question deeply touched Dorothy. How to explain to a child that some children can be cruel to the parents who raised them with so much love? Sometimes people do bad things even when they shouldn't, Dorothy answered diplomatically. But I'll never do bad things to you, Mom, nor to Grandma Dorothy's, declared Tyler with all the sincerity of his 7 years. During the following days, the protective network formed by the neighbors grew stronger. Mrs. Betty, who lived 3 houses down, became a sort of lookout, always attentive to strange movements on the street. Mr. Anthony, a retiree who spent his days on the porch, took on the role of official observer. Dorothy began to feel part of that community in a way she had never experienced in her own middle-class neighborhoods. Here, people genuinely cared for each other, without ulterior motives or hidden interests. One morning, while helping Tyler with his homework, Dorothy heard Jennifer talking with someone outside. Through the window, she saw a well-dressed man, about 60 years old, who didn't seem to be from the neighborhood. I'm a retired lawyer, and I've lived here for 5 years. I heard about your situation and would like to offer free legal assistance, said the man, introducing himself as Mr. Harold Thompson. I'm not sure if I need a lawyer, Dorothy replied hesitantly. It's always good to know your rights, especially in situations like what you've been through, insisted Mr. Harold Thompson. During a 2-hour conversation, the lawyer explained to Dorothy that elder abandonment was a crime and that she had rights that might be being violated. He also asked for details about her financial and property situation. Do you have any assets in your name? House, land, investments? Asked Mr. Thompson. Just my house, which went to my children when I moved into Brian's apartment 2 years ago, Dorothy answered. And this apartment, whose name is it in? The lawyer continued. In his name. I only contributed my retirement money to the expenses, Dorothy explained. Mr. Thompson took some notes and promised to investigate the legal situation. He suspected there might be irregularities in the procedures adopted by Dorothy's children, especially if they had improperly taken possession of her assets. There's one more thing, Mrs. Henderson. Some correspondence has come to my attention about an inheritance in your name. Apparently you inherited a property from your sister Margaret, who passed away last year, revealed Mr. Thompson. Dorothy was surprised. She didn't know about any inheritance, and her sister Margaret had died without them having much contact in recent years. The two had grown apart after a family argument over a decade ago. How did you find out about this? Dorothy asked. I have contacts at the courthouse. The process was stalled because they couldn't locate you for notification. Your children changed your address without informing them of the new one, the lawyer explained. What kind of property? Dorothy asked, still processing the information. A lot with an old building in downtown Franklin. From what I could find out, it's worth a considerable amount, said Mr. Thompson. The news of the inheritance spread quickly through Hope Heights. The neighbors were genuinely happy about the turnaround in Dorothy's life, seeing it as a kind of divine justice. Jennifer reacted to the news with joy mixed with apprehension, On one hand, she was happy that Dorothy would have her own resources and wouldn't depend on anyone's charity anymore. On the other hand, she feared that the elderly woman might decide to leave now that she had financial means. "Are you going to move now that you have your own house?" Jennifer asked that evening. "I don't know yet. I need to first understand this inheritance story properly," Dorothy answered. "Tyler will be very sad if you leave," said Jennifer, unable to hide her own sadness. "And I would be sad to leave you too. Here I feel at home for the first time in a long while," Dorothy admitted. Mr. Thompson worked quickly to regularize the inheritance documentation. Within a week, Dorothy officially became the owner of a townhouse in the historic center of Franklin, valued at approximately $2.5 million. The property had functioned as a private school during the 1960s and 1970s, but had been closed for years. The building needed renovations, but had a solid structure and a prime location. When Mr. Thompson took Dorothy to see her new property, she was moved. The townhouse had 2 floors with spacious rooms, high ceilings, and large windows overlooking the town's central square. "This is where your sister Margaret ran St. Catherine's School for 15 years, explained Mr. Thompson. "Margaret always wanted to be a teacher, just like me, but she managed to fulfill her dream of having her own school," Dorothy said, touching the walls affectionately. "There's an interesting clause in the will. Your sister specified that the property should preferably be used for educational or charitable purposes," the lawyer informed. Dorothy walked through the empty rooms, imagining how it would be to turn that place into something useful again. The idea of returning to education, even at 72, rekindled a passion she thought was dormant. That evening, during dinner at Jennifer's simple home, Dorothy shared her vision for the townhouse. She wanted to transform it into a community educational center, offering free tutoring for underprivileged children. "I can help children like Tyler, who are smart but need individual attention," explained Dorothy. "What a wonderful idea. The neighborhood really needs something like this," said Jennifer, excited. "And I'd like you to be my partner in this project. You would be the center's coordinator," proposed Dorothy. Jennifer was surprised by the proposal. She had never imagined she could work in education, despite always enjoying helping Tyler with his studies. "But I don't have the qualifications for that," protested Jennifer. "You have the most important thing, love for children and willingness to learn. The rest we'll develop together," argued Dorothy. Tyler listened to the conversation with shining eyes. The possibility of having Grandma Dorothy always nearby and also helping other children made him radiant with happiness. "Will there be other kids there?" asked Tyler. "Many children of all ages. And you'll be able to help the younger ones, being a special monitor," said Dorothy. The idea of responsibility made Tyler feel very important. He immediately began imagining what it would be like to teach other children the math tricks Dorothy had taught him. In the following days, Dorothy and Mr. Harold Thompson began working on the legal and bureaucratic details to turn the townhouse into an educational center. The lawyer advised her on social organization registration, necessary permits, and tax matters. During this period, Dorothy's children intensified their search. They had found out about the inheritance through contacts at the courthouse and were desperate to find their mother. Brian, the oldest son, appeared in the Hope Heights neighborhood on a Monday morning. He was driving an imported car that contrasted with the simplicity of the place, drawing attention from the residents. Mr. Anthony, the street's official observer, immediately recognized the description Barbara had given. He discreetly alerted the other houses about the presence of the mean son in the neighborhood. Brian went door to door asking about Dorothy, but all the neighbors denied having seen any lady in a wheelchair. Some were more creative, saying they had seen a lady like that taking a bus to Atlanta the previous week. "Are you sure you haven't seen my mother? She's a white-haired lady, uses a wheelchair," insisted Brian. "Sir, here in the neighborhood we've known each other for years. If someone different showed up, everyone would know," replied Mrs. Betty naturally. Frustrated, Brian ended up leaving but promised to return. The neighbors were on high alert, organizing a communication system in case he came back. That afternoon, Dorothy was hiding in Jennifer's room when she heard Tyler coming home from school, more excited than usual. Mom, at school everyone is talking about a man who came looking for Grandma Dorothy," Tyler said, running. "What do you mean, son?" asked Jennifer, worried. The teacher said a man came to the school asking if any student had a grandmother who used a wheelchair. She said there wasn't, explained Tyler. Brian's audacity in looking for Dorothy even at the school left everyone outraged. The school principal, Mrs. Evelyn, had become suspicious of the vague questions and the man's nervous demeanor. Dorothy realized she couldn't stay hidden indefinitely. Her children were persistent and would eventually find out where she was. She decided to talk with Mr. Harold about the legal options available. "Can they force me to go back?" asked Dorothy. "Absolutely not. You are a capable person and free to make your own choices. The most they can try is to claim mental incapacity, but that would be very difficult to prove," explained Mr. Harold. "And if they try that?" insisted Dorothy. "We would have to go through a psychiatric evaluation, but considering you're running a complex educational project, it would be impossible to sustain an incapacity claim," reassured the lawyer. 2 days later, Kevin, Dorothy's youngest son, showed up in the neighborhood. Unlike Brian, he came alone and seemed genuinely worried and remorseful. Kevin was more respectful in his approaches to the neighbors, explaining that he was concerned about his mother and just wanted to know if she was okay. His less aggressive stance almost convinced Barbara to reveal information. "You seem like a good person, but I can't say anything without being sure of your intentions," said Barbara diplomatically. "I just want to know if my mother is okay." "I know we've wronged her a lot," admitted Kevin, showing genuine remorse. "If you're truly sorry, why didn't you come alone before? Why did you bring your siblings?" questioned Barbara. Kevin didn't know how to answer. He admitted he had been influenced by his siblings, especially by Sharon, who had always been harsher with their mother. Barbara was touched by the young man's apparent regret, but remained loyal to Dorothy. She suggested that Kevin leave a message in case Dorothy showed up, which he did with gratitude. When Dorothy learned about the message, she was torn. Kevin had always been the most affectionate of her 3 children, and knowing he was remorseful stirred her maternal feelings. "Maybe he's changed. Maybe I should give him a chance," Dorothy said to Jennifer. "Mrs. Dorothy, where was he when his siblings abandoned you on the road?" asked Jennifer wisely. "He was there, but he didn't say anything. He just lowered his head," Dorothy recalled, the reality coming back. "Then he's a coward, even if he's not mean. You deserve more than that," argued Jennifer. Tyler, who was listening to the conversation from the room, came into the living room with a serious expression on his face. "Grandma Dorothy, is this son of yours the one who was in the car when they left you on the road?" asked Tyler. "Yes, my dear." "Why?" replied Dorothy. "Then he saw his siblings be mean to you and did nothing." "That's not right," declared Tyler with the moral clarity of children. The boy's simple words had more impact than all the adults' arguments. Dorothy realized that Kevin had been complicit in the abandonment, even if he wasn't the mastermind of the idea. That night, Dorothy made a definitive decision. She would not contact Kevin or any of her children. Her new family was there in Hope Heights, with people who valued and respected her. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The renovations on the townhouse began the following week. Dorothy hired masons and painters from the local area, creating jobs for residents of Hope Heights and nearby neighborhoods. Jennifer was officially hired as coordinator of the Future Educational Center with a salary that tripled her family's income. She enrolled in a distance learning pedagogy course, determined to properly qualify for her new role. Tyler followed the renovations with fascination. He had become a sort of mascot for the construction site, always asking about every detail and imagining what it would be like to work there. "Grandma Dorothy, how many children will study here?" Tyler asked every day. "Many, my dear." "We'll have rooms for different ages and activities," Dorothy would answer, always patient. The project had grown beyond the initial expectations. Dorothy decided to include activities for seniors as well, creating a true intergenerational center. There would be craft rooms, a community library, and even a small theater for performances. Mr. Harold Thompson helped with all the necessary paperwork, working pro bono out of gratitude for the social project Dorothy was developing. He had been moved by her vision of turning a personal inheritance into a benefit for the entire community. During the renovations, an unexpected problem arose. Brian and Sharon found out about the inheritance and Dorothy's location through leaked information from the county clerk's office. They showed up at the townhouse under construction one morning, accompanied by a lawyer. "Mum, we need to talk. We know you inherited this property, and we don't think you're in any condition to manage such a large estate," said Brian, trying to sound concerned. "Look who's back. Now that you've found out I have money, you show up," Dorothy replied, not intimidated. "It's not that, Mum. We're worried about you. These people are taking advantage of your generosity," said Sharon, looking disdainfully at the workers who had stopped working. "What people?" asked Dorothy. "This Jennifer and these neighbors, they just want your money," Sharon accused. Dorothy felt anger rise for the first time in many years. The audacity of her children to question the people who had cared for her when they had abandoned her was unbearable. "You have the nerve to say that after what you did to me," Dorothy shot back, her voice firm. "Mum, we made mistakes, but now we want to take proper care of you," tried Kevin, who was with his siblings. "Where were you when I needed you?" "Jennifer and Tyler took me in when you called me useless and left me on a roadside," said Dorothy, positioning herself between her children and the workers. Her children's lawyer tried to intervene, arguing that Dorothy wasn't mentally capable of managing such a valuable property. He suggested she should transfer the management to her children, who would take care of everything. "My client is perfectly capable," interrupted Mr. Thompson, who had arrived at just the right moment. "In fact, she's developing a complex social project that will benefit hundreds of people." "And who are you?" asked the children's lawyer arrogantly. "I am Mrs. Dorothy's legal representative, and I can state that she is of sound mind," replied Mr. Thompson, presenting his Bar Association card. The argument intensified when Sharon started yelling at Dorothy, calling her ungrateful and accusing her of favoring strangers over her own family. "Strangers?" Dorothy shouted back. "You were the strangers when you abandoned me. Jennifer and Tyler took me in when I was left on a roadside." The workers and neighbors at the construction site were outraged by the children's aggressive tone. Mr. Anthony, who had accompanied Dorothy to the townhouse, couldn't take it and intervened. "Listen here, kids. You have no right to come here shouting at Mrs. Dorothy. She's being well taken care of and doing beautiful work for the community," said Mr. Anthony firmly. "You stay out of this. You're not family," Brian retorted scornfully. "Yes, I am family. Mrs. Dorothy is family to everyone here, which is something you never were," replied Mr. Anthony, earning approval from those present. The situation grew tense until Jennifer arrived with Tyler. The boy saw the argument and immediately stood by Dorothy's side, holding her hand. "Are you Grandma Dorothy's mean children?" Tyler asked with the frankness of children. The innocent question caused an awkward silence. Sharon looked at the boy with contempt, but Kevin seemed genuinely shaken to be called evil by a child. "What a rude child," murmured Sharon. "Rude is the one who abandons their own mother on a roadside," retorted Jennifer, positioning herself defensively in front of Tyler. The confrontation ended when Mr. Harold Thompson threatened to call the police if the children continued disturbing the peace. They left, but promised to return with legal measures to question Dorothy's mental capacity. "Can they do anything against you?" asked Jennifer, worried. "They can try, but it will be difficult to prove mental incapacity for someone managing a complex project like this," reassured Mr. Harold Thompson. "And if they succeed," insisted Dorothy. "Even if they did, the most they could do is appoint a curator to manage your assets. But they couldn't force you to leave here or change your life," explained the lawyer. In the following days, the story of the confrontation spread throughout Franklin. The community mobilized in support of Dorothy, with people offering to volunteer at the educational center and donate to speed up the construction. Mrs. Evelyn, the principal of Tyler's school, approached Dorothy to propose an official partnership. She suggested that the center serve as an extension of the public school, offering after-school activities. "It would be a perfect partnership. The children would get quality tutoring and cultural activities that the public school can't provide," explained Mrs. Evelyn. "I'd love to make this partnership happen. I've always wanted education to be accessible to everyone," replied Dorothy, excited. The project gained unexpected dimensions when a local newspaper published a story about Dorothy's journey. The headline, elderly woman abandoned by children turns inheritance into social project drew regional attention. The buzz brought visitors from other cities interested in learning about the project. Education professionals, social workers, and even politicians showed up to offer support and partnerships. A businessman from Atlanta, moved by the story, offered funding to fully equip the center with computers, books, and modern teaching materials. "I've never seen such a beautiful project arise from such a sad situation," said the businessman during his visit. "It's that sometimes God turns our pains into blessings for others," replied Dorothy wisely. The construction accelerated with so much support, and the center was completed 2 months ahead of schedule. Dorothy decided to name it the Margaret Henderson Educational Center, in honor of the sister who had made it all possible. The inauguration was set for a Saturday morning. Dorothy woke up that day with a mix of nerves and joy. She would finally see a dream come true that she hadn't even known she had. Jennifer helped Dorothy get ready with special care. She had bought a new dress for the occasion and insisted that Dorothy wear her best jewelry. "Today is your day to shine, Mrs. Dorothy. Everyone will see what I already knew, that you are a very special person," said Jennifer as she combed the lady's hair. Tyler was beaming in his new clothes. Dorothy had named him the junior monitor of the center, a title he took very seriously. "Grandma Dorothy, do you think many people will come to the inauguration?" asked Tyler. "I hope so, my dear. The more people, the more children we can help," replied Dorothy. When they arrived at the renovated townhouse, Dorothy was moved. The building was unrecognizable, with cheerful colors, a well-kept garden, and a golden plaque at the entrance with the center's name. People started arriving at 9 in the morning. First came the neighbors from Hope Heights, then teachers from the municipal school, followed by local authorities, and finally families interested in enrolling their children. Mr. Harold Thompson made the official presentation, telling Dorothy's story and explaining the center's mission. When it was her turn to speak, Dorothy became emotional seeing over 200 people gathered. "Just a few months ago, I was thrown out on a road, being called useless by my own children," Dorothy began, her voice steady despite the emotion. "Today I'm here, opening a place where no child will be called incapable and no elderly person will be considered useless." The speech brought tears to those present. Dorothy continued speaking about the importance of education and respect between generations, values she intended to teach at the center. Tyler made sure to show all the visitors the rooms that had been prepared. He expertly explained each space, from the library to the computer lab. "This will be the room where Grandma Dorothy will teach math. She teaches really well. I learned everything from her," Tyler said proudly. During the opening celebration, children Dorothy had informally helped performed artistic numbers. They sang songs they'd learned with her and recited poems about gratitude and family. A special moment came when Mrs. Lorraine, the bus station employee who had helped Dorothy on her first night, arrived at the celebration. The two women hugged emotionally, remembering how everything had begun. "Who would have thought that sad lady at the bus station would become the joy of so many people?" said Lorraine. "Sometimes we need to lose everything to find what really matters," Dorothy reflected. Late in the morning, as the celebration reached its peak, 3 cars stopped in front of the building. From the vehicles emerged Brian, Sharon, Kevin, and other relatives Dorothy hadn't seen for years. The atmosphere of the celebration instantly changed. Neighbors positioned themselves defensively around Dorothy, forming a human barrier between her and her children. "Mum, we came to talk," said Kevin, trying to approach. "We'll talk another day when you came to yell at me," Dorothy replied, not moving from her spot. "We know we were wrong. We want to make amends," Kevin insisted. "Where were you when I needed redemption?" asked Dorothy. Sharon tried a different approach, pretending to be moved by the center project. She praised the initiative and said she was proud of her mother. "What you've done here is beautiful, Mum. We always knew you were capable of great things," Sharon said with evident falseness. "Funny because on the road you said I was useless," Dorothy retorted dryly. The children's hypocrisy further outraged those present. Several people began murmuring about their audacity showing up at the opening after abandoning their mother. Tyler, with his childish sincerity, approached the 3 siblings and observed them for a few seconds. "Why did you make Grandma Dorothy cry?" the boy asked. Kevin knelt to be at Tyler's eye level, trying to explain it had been a misunderstanding. But the boy wasn't convinced. "My mom said you called Grandma useless. That's not right. She teaches math really well and makes tasty food," Tyler said seriously. The conversation with the child was visibly shaking Kevin. Brian tried to intervene, pulling his brother away from Tyler. "Kevin, let's not stand here listening to nonsense from a child. Let's say what we came to say," Brian said impatiently. "What did you come to say?" asked Mr. Harold Thompson, positioning himself beside Dorothy. "We want to propose an agreement. We'll manage our mother's assets, and she can continue with her activities," proposed the children's lawyer. "Mrs. Dorothy manages her own assets quite well, thank you," Mr. Harold Thompson replied firmly. "But she's spending a fortune on this project. In a few years nothing will be left," argued the lawyer. "And if nothing is left?" asked Dorothy. "At least it will have served some useful purpose, unlike you." Dorothy's direct response surprised her children. They hadn't expected to find a mother so self-assured and determined. The argument was interrupted when a school bus arrived, bringing children from a distant neighborhood who had come to visit the center. The children ran excitedly into the house, turning the tense atmosphere back to joy. The children realized it wasn't the right time to continue the conversation. They withdrew, but Sharon muttered threats about legal measures they would take. "You'll still need us," Sharon said before getting in the car. "I'd only need you if I were to play the role of a mother, and that role I've already played for 50 years, Dorothy replied with dignity. After her children left, the party resumed its cheerful mood. Dorothy was greeted by dozens of people who offered to help the center in various ways. At the end of the day, when everyone had gone, Dorothy was alone at the center with Jennifer and Tyler. The three walked through the empty rooms, imagining what it would be like when they were full of children. "Mrs. Dorothy, do you think your children will come back?" asked Jennifer. "Probably yes, but now I'm sure I made the right choice," replied Dorothy. "What choice?" asked Tyler. "To build a real family based on love and not obligation," explained Dorothy, hugging the boy. That night, back in the simple house in Hope Heights, Dorothy felt more fulfilled than she had ever felt. For the first time in her life, she was doing exactly what she wanted, without worrying about the approval or gratitude of others. The first classes at the center started the following Monday. Dorothy had decided to begin with small groups of 10 children in each room, allowing for individualized attention. Tyler was enrolled in the first class and helped Dorothy with the younger children. He had become a natural assistant, explaining exercises to his classmates with patience and care. Jennifer took on administrative duties and pedagogical coordination with impressive dedication. She had studied teaching methodologies and implemented an individual monitoring system for each child. Mr. Harold continued to offer free legal support and had become a sort of adoptive grandfather to Tyler. The boy loved listening to the stories the lawyer told about his years in the profession. The center quickly became a reference in the region. Teachers from other cities came to learn about the methods used by Dorothy, especially her humanized approach to children with learning difficulties. 2 weeks after the opening, a court officer arrived at the center with a summons. Dorothy's children had filed a lawsuit questioning her mental capacity and requesting guardianship. "Mrs. Dorothy, you'll have to undergo a psychiatric evaluation," explained Mr. Harold after reading the document. "Can they take me away from here?" asked Dorothy, worried. "They cannot. Even if they could prove incapacity, which is unlikely, they would only appoint a guardian. You would still be free to live wherever you want," reassured the lawyer. The news of the lawsuit quickly spread through the community. The neighbors were outraged by this further attempt by the children to harm Dorothy. Mrs. Evelyn, the school principal, decided to send a letter to the judge reporting the exemplary work Dorothy had been doing with the children. She attached progress reports from the children served by the center. The psychiatrist appointed by the judge came to visit the center a week later. Dr. Paul Mitchell was a respected professional with experience in guardianship cases. Dorothy welcomed him naturally, showing all the facilities and explaining in detail the teaching methods used. The doctor was impressed by the clarity and organizational skills she demonstrated. "Did you develop this entire project by yourself?" asked Dr. Paul. "With Jennifer and Mr. Harold's help, but the concept was indeed mine," replied Dorothy. "And the financial resources? How do you manage the expenses?" continued the psychiatrist. Dorothy showed detailed spreadsheets of income and expenses, activity schedules, and even financial sustainability projections for the center. Everything was meticulously organized and planned. During the evaluation, Tyler appeared in the room looking for Dorothy to clarify a math question. The natural interaction between them impressed the doctor. "Grandma Dorothy, I can't understand this multiplication problem," said Tyler, showing his notebook. "Let's see, sweetheart. Remember the trick I taught you," said Dorothy patiently, explaining the exercise step by step. Dr. Paul observed the clear teaching method and endless patience with which Dorothy treated the child. It was evident that she was in full use of her mental and emotional faculties. "Mrs. Henderson, may I speak with some children who study here?" asked the psychiatrist. "Of course, they love visitors," replied Dorothy. The doctor spent an hour talking with different children about classes, teachers, and center activities. They all spoke of Dorothy with affection and admiration, describing her as a patient and caring teacher. One of the children, 8-year-old Emily, shared that she had arrived at the center not knowing how to read well and that Dorothy had taught her through games and play. "Aunt Dorothy made me enjoy studying. Before I thought I was dumb, but she said I just needed a little extra time," Emily recounted. At the end of the evaluation, Dr. Paul spoke privately with Dorothy about her relationship with her children. She was honest about the abandonment, but without showing excessive bitterness. "How do you feel about what your children did?" asked the doctor. "Hurt, of course, but I can't live in hurt forever. I prefer to invest my energy in those who value me," Dorothy replied with maturity. "And they never tried to reconnect," continued Dr. Paul. "Kevin showed regret, but he was the same one who stayed silent when they abandoned me. Words are easy. Actions show character," Dorothy philosophized. The psychiatric report was categorical. Dorothy was in perfect mental state, demonstrating full capacity to manage her assets and make decisions about her life. The doctor even praised the social project she had developed. When the result came to her children's knowledge, they were desperate. The lawyer suggested one last attempt at an out-of-court settlement, offering care in exchange for financial control. The proposal was brought to Dorothy through Mr. Harold, who recommended she reject it. She didn't even hesitate in her response. "Tell them that if they wanted to take care of me, they should have thought of that before throwing me out on a road," said Dorothy. "Are you sure?" "They are your children. There could still be reconciliation," pondered Mr. Harold. "Mr. Harold, do you have children?" asked Dorothy. "I have 2, replied the lawyer. "Could you abandon one of them on a road and then pretend it was a misunderstanding?" questioned Dorothy. "Never," admitted Mr. Harold. "Then you understand what kind of people my children are," concluded Dorothy. From that moment on, Dorothy decided to focus entirely on her new life project. The educational center grew every week, serving more children and offering new services to the community. Jennifer had graduated in education and officially taken over the pedagogical direction of the center. Her salary allowed her to move to a larger house, but always close to Dorothy. Tyler continued to be the most dedicated junior mentor at the center. At 8 years old, he was already helping younger children with reading and basic math, following the methods he had learned from Dorothy. The center gained statewide media attention when one of the children Dorothy had tutored won first place in a statewide essay contest. The girl credited her success to the center's teaching methods. During the newspaper interview, Dorothy spoke about the importance of believing in every child's potential and how her own experience with rejection had motivated her to never reject a child. "I know how much it hurts to be called worthless. That's why, here at the center, every child is treated as unique and special," Dorothy told the reporter. The story resonated throughout the state, bringing visitors from various cities interested in replicating the center's model in their regions. Dorothy began giving lectures on humanized education and valuing the elderly. 1 year after its opening, the Margaret Henderson Educational Center had become a respected regional institution. It served over 100 children regularly and offered activities for 50 elderly community members. Dorothy had also created a literacy program for adults, remembering her own struggle to study when she was young. Many of the children's mothers took the opportunity to return to their studies. Jennifer developed partnerships with universities to receive education interns, turning the center into a training ground for future teachers. The quality of education offered became an academic benchmark. Mr. Harold had become the chairman of the center's administrative board, a position he carried out with total dedication. He said that project had given new meaning to his retirement years. Tyler, now 9 years old, was known throughout Franklin as the boy teacher. He had developed his own technique for teaching math that the other children loved. One December afternoon, as Dorothy was organizing preparations for the center's year-end party, an unexpected visitor arrived. Kevin came alone without his siblings, asking to talk. "Mom, can I come in?" Kevin asked humbly. "You may, but know that here you are just another visitor," replied Dorothy, maintaining emotional distance. Kevin walked through the center, observing everything carefully. He saw the classrooms full of children, the work displayed on the walls, and the joy that filled the environment. "Mom, I came to ask for forgiveness for real this time," said Kevin, sitting down before her. "Kevin, you've asked for forgiveness before. Why would this time be different?" asked Dorothy. "Because now I understand what we lost. Seeing what you've built here, I see the amazing woman you always were, and that we failed to appreciate," Kevin explained with tear-filled eyes. "And where are your siblings? Why did you come alone?" questioned Dorothy. "They don't know I'm here. Brian is in debt and only thinks about money. Sharon, she's become a bitter person who blames everyone for her own problems," revealed Kevin. Dorothy listened in silence, trying to detect sincerity in her son's words. There was something different in his behavior this time, a humility she hadn't noticed before. "Kevin, you participated in my abandonment. You were there, you saw your siblings call me worthless and said nothing," Dorothy reminded him. "I know, Mom, and that haunts me every day. I'm a coward, I always have been. I always let Brian and Sharon boss me around," admitted Kevin. "And what's changed now?" asked Dorothy. "My wife left me. She said she can't respect a man who abandons his own mother. My children ask questions about their grandmother that I can't answer," Kevin shared, his voice choked. The revelation touched Dorothy. Knowing that her children's actions had consequences in their own lives brought a mix of sadness and satisfaction. "Do your children want to meet me?" asked Dorothy, referring to the grandchildren she had never really known. "They ask where Grandma is. I don't know what to say anymore," said Kevin. Tyler appeared in the room at that moment, returning from his math class. He greeted Kevin politely but stayed close to Dorothy in a protective way. "This is Kevin, one of Grandma Dorothy's sons," Dorothy explained to Tyler. "Oh, one of the mean ones," said Tyler with the frankness of children. "Tyler," Dorothy gently scolded. "No, he's right. I was mean indeed," admitted Kevin, looking at the boy. Tyler became curious about this unexpected answer. He had imagined that Dorothy's children were horrible people, but Kevin seemed sad and regretful. "Why were you mean to Grandma Dorothy?" Tyler asked directly. "Because I was selfish and cowardly. I let my siblings do something very bad," explained Kevin, in language the child could understand. "And now you're not mean anymore," continued Tyler with curiosity. "I'm trying not to be, but it's hard to fix things when you mess up badly," Kevin answered honestly. The conversation with Tyler seemed to touch Kevin deeply. Seeing that child defending his mother with such affection made him understand the depth of what they had lost. "Mom, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I would like a chance to get to know better what you're doing here," Kevin requested. "Kevin, forgiveness isn't asked for, it's earned through actions," Dorothy said wisely. "What do I need to do?" asked Kevin, genuinely interested. "You need to understand that I'm not the mother you used to know. I'm a different person who has built a new life," Dorothy explained. "I understand, and I would like to meet this new person if she allows me," Kevin said humbly. Dorothy remained silent for a few minutes, analyzing the situation. There was something different about Kevin this time, a real humility she hadn't seen before. "You can come here once a week as a volunteer. You can help with general activities, but without special privileges," Dorothy offered cautiously. "I accept any condition," said Kevin, moved. "And if your siblings show up here causing trouble, you will be responsible for controlling them, or you will be permanently banned," Dorothy warned. "I understand perfectly," Kevin agreed. Tyler had followed the entire conversation attentively. When Kevin got up to leave, the boy approached him. "If you hurt Grandma Dorothy again, you'll have a problem with me," Tyler said seriously. Kevin knelt to be at the boy's level and extended his hand. "I promise I'll try to be a better person. Can you help keep an eye on me?" Kevin asked. Tyler shook his hand suspiciously, but accepted the proposal. There was something in the sincerity of that moment that convinced the child. The following Saturday, Kevin showed up at the center promptly at 8 in the morning. He was dressed in simple clothes and brought a willingness to work that impressed everyone. "What can I do to help?" Kevin asked Jennifer. "You can help organize the library. Donations of books have arrived that need to be catalogued," Jennifer replied, still suspicious. Kevin worked for 4 hours organizing books without complaining. Several times Tyler appeared to check if he was really working, fulfilling his role as watchdog. "He's working properly, Grandma Dorothy," Tyler reported during lunch. "That's good, but keep watching," Dorothy said, still cautious. During the following weeks, Kevin attended religiously every Saturday. He helped with cleaning, organizing minor repairs, and even preparing teaching materials. The children at the center gradually lost their fear of him. Kevin had a way with children and soon was informally helping with recreational activities. Tyler was the first to truly accept Kevin. The two developed a special friendship, with Kevin teaching the boy about electronics and Tyler showing him the teaching methods he had learned from Dorothy. "Grandma Dorothy, Kevin knows a lot about computers," Tyler excitedly shared. "Is that so?" asked Dorothy, interested. "He said he can teach the older kids how to use computers better," explained Tyler. Dorothy considered the proposal. The center had donated computer equipment, but they lacked someone with technical knowledge to teach the children properly. "Kevin, is it true that you understand computers?" Dorothy asked the following Saturday. "I've worked with them for 15 years. I can teach from the basics to simple programming," Kevin replied. "Would you like to teach classes here?" Dorothy cautiously offered. "I'd love to. It can be part of my volunteer work," Kevin promptly accepted. Kevin's computer classes became very popular among the children. He had a natural teaching ability and patience for explaining technical concepts simply. Dorothy watched the classes from a distance, impressed with the teaching skills Kevin demonstrated. She began to remember when he was a child, always interested in taking apart and reassembling electronic devices. "Kevin is a good teacher," Tyler admitted to Dorothy. "Are you enjoying his classes?" asked Dorothy. "Yes. He teaches differently from the school teachers, slower and with more examples," explained Tyler. 3 months after Kevin started volunteering, Dorothy decided to have a serious talk with him about his family situation. "Kevin, how are things with your siblings?" Dorothy asked during a break. "Brian is getting more in debt and desperate. Sharon, she's obsessed with proving that you're mentally incompetent," Kevin replied sadly. "And you?" asked Dorothy. "I'm trying to rebuild my life. The classes I teach here have given me a new perspective on education. I'm thinking about changing careers," Kevin revealed. "Change how?" asked Dorothy, interested. "I want to get a degree in education, specializing in educational technology. I've discovered I like teaching much more than managing systems," explained Kevin. The revelation surprised Dorothy. Seeing a son discover an educational vocation through the center she had created brought a strange feeling of maternal pride. "Are you sure about this?" asked Dorothy. "I am. For the first time in my life, I wake up excited to work. Here I feel truly useful," Kevin said sincerely. "And your personal life?" asked Dorothy. "I'm trying to win back my family. My wife agreed to talk after she learned about my work here. She said for the first time she's seeing the man she fell in love with," Kevin shared. The conversation was interrupted when Tyler came running, excited about some news. "Grandma Dorothy, Kevin, a van full of children from another neighborhood arrived. They came to see the center," announced Tyler. Dorothy and Kevin went to greet the visitors together. It was the first time they shared a responsibility at the center, and the partnership worked naturally. The visiting children were delighted with the facilities and activities. Kevin demonstrated some computer programs, while Dorothy explained the teaching methods used. "Have you two worked together for a long time?" asked the coordinator who accompanied the children. "Actually, we're learning to work together," Dorothy replied diplomatically. At the end of the visit, the coordinator praised the quality of the work being done at the center and asked for guidance to implement something similar in her community. "You have a very harmonious team. You can tell how much care you show the children," she said. After the visitors left, Dorothy and Kevin were alone in the computer room organizing the equipment. It was the first private conversation they had had in months. "Mum, can I ask you a question?" Kevin said hesitantly. "You may," Dorothy replied. "Do you think you could ever forgive me?" Kevin asked humbly. Dorothy stopped what she was doing and looked deeply at her son. She saw a genuine transformation in him, but the wound of abandonment was still tender. "Kevin, forgiveness is a process. It's not something that happens overnight," Dorothy explained. "I understand. I just wanted to know if there's hope," Kevin said. "There is hope, yes. But it depends on your perseverance in being a better person," Dorothy answered honestly. "Can I keep trying?" Kevin asked. "You may, and I'll keep watching," Dorothy said. That night, Dorothy talked to Jennifer about the situation with Kevin. The young woman had observed his transformation and admitted being impressed. "Mrs. Dorothy, Kevin has really changed. The children like him a lot," Jennifer said. "I've noticed it too, but I'm still afraid of being disappointed again," Dorothy admitted. "You don't have to make any decision right now. You can take it slow at your own pace," Jennifer advised. "It's just hard to separate the son he is now from the memory of what he did," Dorothy reflected. Tyler, who was listening to the conversation from the bedroom, came into the living room with a keen observation. "Grandma Dorothy, Kevin can't change what he did before, but he can do good things now," the boy said. Tyler's simple wisdom touched Dorothy deeply. The child had summed up in one sentence the dilemma she was facing. "You're right, my dear. What matters is the present and the future," Dorothy agreed. The following week, Kevin brought a surprise to the center. He had managed to get donations of more modern computer equipment through contacts from his old job. "I managed to convince my former company to donate these computers to the center," Kevin announced proudly. "But they're very expensive," Jennifer exclaimed, impressed. "I explained the social work that's done here. The director was so impressed that he authorized the donation," Kevin explained. Dorothy was moved by the gesture. Kevin had used his own professional contacts to benefit the center, showing real commitment to the project. "Thank you, Kevin. This will make a big difference for the children," Dorothy said, truly grateful. "No need to thank me, Mom. It's the least I can do," Kevin replied. The installation of the new equipment became an event at the center. Kevin spent the entire weekend setting everything up, with Tyler as his official assistant. "Kevin, can you teach me how to set up a computer?" Tyler asked. "Of course. You can be my special helper," Kevin said, pleased. Dorothy watched the two working together and was surprised by the patience Kevin showed with Tyler. The boy asked 1,000 questions, and Kevin answered them all with care. "Tyler, you're learning fast. You have a knack for technology," Kevin praised. "Grandma Dorothy always says we learn better when someone teaches us with care," Tyler replied. The boy's words made Kevin reflect on how he had been treated by his parents during his childhood. Dorothy had always been patient and caring, just as he was being with Tyler now. At the end of the day, when everyone had left, Kevin was alone with Dorothy at the center. "Mom, can I say something?" Kevin said. "Of course," Dorothy replied. "Seeing you with these children, I remember how you were with me when I was little. You've always been like this, patient, caring, dedicated," said Kevin, moved. "I tried to be a good mother," said Dorothy simply. "You were the best mother in the world. We were the ones who were awful children," admitted Kevin, tears beginning to fall. "Kevin," began Dorothy. "No, Mom. Let me speak. I remember all the times you stayed up with me when I was sick, the sacrifices you made to pay for my education, the pride in your eyes when I graduated," continued Kevin. Dorothy also became emotional remembering those moments. For years she had wondered if all that dedication had meant anything to her children. "I remember all that too," said Dorothy with a choked voice. "And yet we treated you as if it were worthless. How could we be so cruel to the one who loved us the most?" asked Kevin, crying. "People sometimes lose their way, son. What matters is finding your way back," said Dorothy, using the word son for the first time in months. Kevin noticed the affectionate term and became even more emotional. "You called me son," he said, surprised. "That's what you are. Even if sometimes I forget it, admitted Dorothy. Can I hug you, Mom? Asked Kevin hesitantly. Dorothy hesitated for a moment, then opened her arms. Kevin hugged her tightly, crying like a child. Forgive me, Mom. Please forgive me, whispered Kevin. I'm trying, my son, I'm trying, replied Dorothy, also crying. The hug lasted several minutes. It was the first loving physical contact between them since before the abandonment on the road. For both, it represented a real first step toward reconciliation. When they finally separated, Kevin wiped away his tears and looked at Dorothy with gratitude. Thank you for giving me this chance, Mom. I promise I won't waste it, said Kevin. Don't make promises, Kevin. Just keep being this better person you're becoming, advised Dorothy. In the following weeks, the relationship between Dorothy and Kevin continued to improve gradually. They worked well together at the center, and conversations became more natural and frequent. Kevin had enrolled in a distance learning pedagogy course and often asked Dorothy for advice on educational matters. She was proud to be able to share her experience and knowledge. Mom, how did you manage to have so much patience with difficult students? Asked Kevin during one of these conversations. I always believed that behind every difficult behavior there was a hurt or scared child, explained Dorothy. And did that work? Asked Kevin, interested. Most of the time, yes. When you treat a child with kindness, they respond with kindness, said Dorothy. Did you apply that with us too? Asked Kevin, remembering his childhood. Of course. You were my most important students, replied Dorothy with a smile. The conversation was interrupted by a call on Kevin's cell phone. From the tone of the conversation, Dorothy realized it was something related to his siblings. It was Brian, explained Kevin after hanging up. He and Sharon are planning new legal action against you. What kind of action? Asked Dorothy, worried. They want to claim that you're being coerced by third parties to spend your money. They'll try to prove that Jennifer and Mr. Harold Thompson are taking advantage of you, revealed Kevin. That's ridiculous, exclaimed Dorothy. I tried to convince them to drop it, but they won't listen to me. Brian is desperate because of his debts, and Sharon, she's obsessed, explained Kevin. And you? Are you going to side with them again? Asked Dorothy, testing her son's loyalty. Mom, I chose my side months ago. I'm with you whatever it costs, declared Kevin firmly. The declaration of loyalty deeply moved Dorothy. It was the first time in years that one of her children had clearly taken her side in a conflict. This could cause problems for you with your siblings, Dorothy warned. I don't care. I already lost my dignity once by staying silent. I won't lose it again, Kevin said with determination. The next day, the summons regarding the new lawsuit arrived at the center. Mr. Harold Thompson examined the documents and explained that it would be necessary to prove that Dorothy had autonomy over her decisions and wasn't being unduly influenced. It's a serious accusation, but without foundation. We have plenty of material to refute it, said Mr. Harold Thompson. What kind of material? Asked Dorothy. Center documents, staff testimonies, activity reports. Everything proves you're making lucid and conscious decisions, explained the lawyer. Kevin offered to testify in his mother's favor, detailing the transformation he had observed in her and at the center. I can tell how you were really depressed when you lived with us and how vibrant you are now, Kevin offered. You would do that? Asked Dorothy, surprised. Of course, Mom, it's the truth, Kevin replied. The hearing was scheduled for a month later. During that period, Dorothy and her team prepared intensively, organizing documents and preparing arguments. Jennifer became nervous about the accusations that she was taking advantage of Dorothy. She offered to step away temporarily from the center to avoid harming the case. Absolutely not, Dorothy said firmly. You are an essential part of this project. I won't let lies harm our work. But what if the judge believes the accusations? Asked Jennifer. Then we'll have to prove they're false. The truth is on our side, Dorothy replied with conviction. Tyler, who had followed the discussions, offered his contribution in his own way. Grandma Dorothy, can I tell the judge you're not crazy? Offered the boy. Thank you, my love. Maybe you can help indeed, said Dorothy, touched by the child's loyalty. Mr. Harold Thompson organized a defense strategy that included testimonies from several people who interacted with Dorothy. Teachers who worked with her, parents of students, neighbors, and professionals who had evaluated the center. We want to show that Mrs. Dorothy is not only mentally well, but also doing extraordinary social work, explained Mr. Harold Thompson. 1 week before the hearing, Brian and Sharon appeared at the center with a court officer demanding access to the project's financial documents. "We came to check how our mother is spending the inheritance money," Sharon said arrogantly. "The inheritance is hers, and she can spend it as she wishes," replied Mr. Harold Thompson. "Not when she's being manipulated by opportunists," Brian retorted, glaring at Jennifer. Kevin appeared in the middle of the argument and clearly positioned himself on his mother's side. "Brian, Sharon, you're making fools of yourselves. Mom is well and happy here," said Kevin. "Kevin, you've been manipulated too. Can't you see these people are taking advantage of the situation?" said Sharon. "The only people I see taking advantage here are you. You abandoned Mom when she was a burden and now want to control her because she has money," Kevin countered. The argument heated up until Tyler appeared with other children from the center. They looked curiously at the adults arguing. "Why are you fighting with Grandma Dorothy?" Tyler asked innocently. "We're not fighting, little one. We're trying to protect our mother," Brian said, trying to sound reasonable. "But she doesn't need protection. She's very smart and takes super good care of all of us," Tyler replied. "You don't understand, child. It's adult stuff," Sharon said impatiently. "Yes, I do understand." "You are the children who abandoned her on the roadside," Tyler said bluntly. The child's remark caused an awkward silence. Sharon flushed with anger, Brian lowered his eyes, and Kevin smiled faintly. "Who told you that?" Sharon asked irritably. "Everyone knows, and everyone thinks you were very mean," Tyler replied fearlessly. Dorothy intervened before the situation worsened. "Tyler, go play with the other children. The adults need to talk," Dorothy said gently. "Okay, Grandma Dorothy, but if they make you cry, I'll call Mr. Anthony," Tyler said, referring to the neighbor who always protected Dorothy. After the children left, the court officer performed his duty by checking the financial documents. Everything was perfectly organized and transparent. "The records are impeccable," the officer reported. "There are no irregularities in the expenses or management." Brian and Sharon were visibly frustrated with the outcome. They had hoped to find evidence of mismanagement or misappropriation of funds. "This proves nothing. They could have fixed everything for this visit," Sharon muttered. "Sharon, stop it. The documents are clear and consistent," Kevin said, defending his mother. "Kevin, you're blind. Can't you see you're being used?" Brian accused. "The only one being used here is me. I'm being used to do good, to help children, to build something beautiful. And I'm happy with that," Kevin replied. After Brian and Sharon left, Dorothy was shaken by the confrontation. Kevin stayed at the center to comfort her. "Mom, don't let them shake you. The work you do here is beautiful," Kevin said. "It's hard to be attacked by your own children, Kevin," Dorothy admitted. "I know, Mom, but now you have many people who truly love and respect you," Kevin said, referring to the entire community at the center. "Including you?" Dorothy asked, looking into her son's eyes. "Especially me, Mom." "Especially me," Kevin replied sincerely. On the day of the hearing, the courthouse was packed. Residents of Hope Heights, parents of students from the center, teachers and staff had mobilized to support Dorothy. Tyler insisted on going too, dressed in his best clothes and carrying a drawing he had made to show the judge. "Grandma Dorothy, can I give this drawing to the judge?" Tyler asked, showing a drawing of the real family, him, Jennifer, and Dorothy. "Yes, my dear, I'm sure he'll like it," Dorothy replied, moved. Mr. Harold Thompson had prepared a solid defense with documents, testimonies, and visual evidence of the work done at the center. Brian and Sharon arrived with their lawyer, confident they could prove their accusations. Kevin sat clearly on his mother's side, drawing disapproving looks from his siblings. The judge, Judge Frederick Allen, was known for his strictness and impartiality. He first heard the prosecution's arguments. Brian and Sharon's lawyer claimed that Dorothy was being manipulated by people interested in her inheritance, that she was spending resources irresponsibly, and that she no longer had the capacity to make important financial decisions. "Your Honor, our client is a victim of opportunists who infiltrated her life when she was vulnerable," the lawyer argued. Then, Mr. Harold Thompson presented the defense, showing all the organized documents, the favorable psychiatric report, and the positive social impact of the educational center. Your Honor, the petitioner is not only in full possession of her faculties, but is also carrying out a social project of great importance to the community, Mr. Harold Thompson defended. The judge called several witnesses to testify. Jennifer explained how she had met Dorothy and how the center had transformed the lives of many families. Kevin was one of the most impactful witnesses. He spoke about being abandoned on the road, admitted his own guilt, and described the transformation he had observed in his mother. Your Honor, I took part in one of the worst things that ever happened in my mother's life. But now I can say I've never seen her as fulfilled and happy as she is at the educational center, testified Kevin. And why are you testifying in favor of your mother against your siblings? Asked the judge. Because this time I want to be on the right side of history, Your Honor, Kevin replied firmly. Tyler was allowed to give his drawing to the judge and explain what it represented. His simple and sincere words deeply touched everyone present. This drawing is of my real family, said Tyler. Grandma Dorothy takes care of me and my mom, and we take care of her. And Mrs. Dorothy's biological children, the judge asked gently. They abandoned her on a road and called her useless, but she's not useless. She teaches math very well, Tyler replied with conviction. The boy's testimony caused a stir in the room. Even the judge seemed moved by the child's sincerity. Several residents of Hope Heights testified about the transformation Dorothy had brought to the community. Teachers spoke about the improvement in school performance of children helped by the center. Mrs. Evelyn, the public school principal, gave a technical testimony about the quality of the educational work developed by Dorothy. Mrs. Dorothy demonstrates exceptional teaching competence and is perfectly capable of making decisions related to the educational project, declared Mrs. Evelyn. The public prosecutor, who had followed the entire process, expressed his opinion in favor of Dorothy. I see no evidence of manipulation or incapacity. On the contrary, I see a lucid woman developing exemplary social work, stated the prosecutor. When it was time for Brian and Sharon to speak, they couldn't present any concrete evidence for their accusations. Their claims sounded empty in the face of so many positive testimonies. Your Honor, our mother has always been easily influenced. We believe she's being manipulated, insisted Sharon. And what is the evidence of this manipulation? Asked the judge. The fact that she's spending so much money on strangers, Brian replied. Helping the community isn't a crime, young man. It's a virtue, the judge observed dryly. At the end of the hearing, the judge withdrew to deliberate. Everyone waited anxiously in the courthouse hallway. Tyler approached Kevin and tugged on his pants to get his attention. Kevin, do you think the judge will let Grandma Dorothy stay with us? Tyler asked worriedly. I think so, Tyler. The truth always wins in the end, Kevin replied, picking up the boy. Brian watched the scene with a mixture of anger and envy. Seeing his brother being treated as family by that child bothered him deeply. After 2 hours of deliberation, the judge returned with his decision. The tension in the room was palpable. After analyzing all the evidence and testimonies, this court finds no indication of manipulation or mental incapacity on the part of the petitioner, announced the judge. On the contrary, we find a lucid, capable woman engaged in social work of great value to the community. The judge continued. Therefore, I rule the interdiction action unfounded. Mrs. Dorothy May Henderson remains in full enjoyment of her civil rights and may continue managing her assets as she sees fit, concluded the judge. The decision was met with applause from those present. Dorothy became emotional and was hugged by Jennifer, Tyler, and Kevin. Furthermore, the judge continued, I order the petitioners to bear all court costs as the action was clearly dilatory and unfounded. Brian and Sharon left the courthouse defeated and humiliated. They had lost not only the case, but also the little dignity they had left. Outside the courthouse, a small celebration formed. The residents of Hope Heights sang and applauded Dorothy, celebrating the victory of justice. Mrs. Dorothy, now no one can bother you anymore, said Mr. Anthony, moved. Thank you, my friends. You were essential in this victory, replied Dorothy, also emotional. Kevin approached his mother with tears in his eyes. Mom, thank you for allowing me to be on the right side this time, said Kevin. Thank you for having the courage to do the right thing, replied Dorothy, hugging her son. Tyler ran to hug Dorothy, jumping with joy. Grandma Dorothy, now you can stay with us forever, shouted Tyler. Forever, my love. Forever, promised Dorothy, kissing the boy's forehead. That night, back at the educational center, Dorothy reflected on everything that had happened. In less than 2 years, her life had completely transformed. Who would have thought that being abandoned on a road would be the start of something so beautiful? Commented Dorothy to Jennifer. Sometimes we need to lose everything to find what really matters, philosophized Jennifer. And I found much more than I lost. I found a real family, a new purpose, and a happiness I didn't know existed, said Dorothy. Kevin had stayed at the center after the hearing, helping organize a small party for the children. It was his way of celebrating not only the legal victory, but also his own redemption. Kevin, can I say something? Said Dorothy when they were alone. Of course, Mom, replied Kevin. I forgive you, completely and without reservations, said Dorothy firmly. Kevin was silent for a moment, processing the words he had longed to hear. Thank you, Mum. That means everything to me, said Kevin, moved. Now you are part of this family again, but a different family, based on respect and true love, explained Dorothy. I understand. And I promise never to disappoint you again, said Kevin. Don't make promises, just keep being this good person you've become, advised Dorothy. 1 month after the court victory, the Margaret Henderson Educational Center organized its second birthday party. The event had grown significantly, with over 500 people attending. Dorothy was honored by the city of Franklin with a Social Merit Medal. The mayor highlighted the importance of the project for municipal education. Mrs. Dorothy has turned a personal inheritance into a legacy for the entire community. It's an example that should be followed by everyone, the mayor said in his speech. Kevin had formalized his work at the center, becoming a computer teacher with a regular salary. His career change was going very well, and he felt professionally fulfilled. Mum, I got the scholarship to continue my teaching degree, Kevin announced excitedly. That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you, said Dorothy, truly pleased. Tyler, now 10 years old, had become a local celebrity. Regional newspapers had run stories about the boy teacher who helped other children. Grandma Dorothy, can I give an interview on television? Asked Tyler, excited about the possibility. Yes, my love, you represent our center very well, replied Dorothy proudly. Jennifer had finished her degree and specialized in special education. The center now also served children with special needs, pioneering this type of care in the region. Mrs. Dorothy, we got approval to expand the center. We'll be able to serve twice as many children, announced Jennifer. What wonderful news! Margaret would be proud to see how her legacy is growing, said Dorothy, referring to her sister. Dr. Harold had created a group of retired lawyers who offered free legal assistance to the community, inspired by the center's work. Mrs. Dorothy, you've started a social revolution in this city, said Mr. Harold. I just planted a seed. You all helped it grow, Dorothy replied humbly. During the party, Dorothy received an unexpected visit. 2 children arrived accompanied by a young woman she didn't know. Mrs. Dorothy? The woman asked hesitantly. Yes, that's me, Dorothy answered. I'm Karen, Kevin's daughter-in-law. These are Ashley and Brandon, your grandchildren, the woman introduced herself. Dorothy was moved to finally meet the grandchildren she'd never had the chance to know. The children were shy but curious. Kevin told them so much about you. They asked to meet their grandmother, Karen explained. I've always wanted to meet you too, Dorothy said, bending down to the children's level. Grandma, is it true you teach math? Asked 8-year-old Brandon. Yes, it's true, sweetheart. Do you want to learn? Dorothy offered. I do. And can I play with that boy over there? Brandon asked, pointing to Tyler. Of course you can. Tyler, come meet Brandon and Ashley, Dorothy called. The children connected instantly. Tyler took on the role of host, showing his new friends every part of the center. Kevin arrived shortly after and was moved to see his mother interacting naturally with his children. Karen, thank you for bringing them, Kevin told his wife. They deserve to know their grandmother. And I wanted to meet the woman who transformed you, Karen replied. So what do you think? Kevin asked. I understand why you've changed so much. She's truly special, Karen said, watching Dorothy play with the children. At the end of the party, as everyone prepared to leave, Dorothy gathered her chosen family, Jennifer, Tyler, Kevin, and now Karen, with the grandchildren. I want to thank all of you for showing me what a real family is, Dorothy said emotionally. We're the ones who should thank you, Grandma Dorothy. You taught us what unconditional love means, Tyler responded. It's true. You found each of us in difficult times and turned us into a family, Jennifer agreed. And gave me a chance to redeem myself as a son and as a person, Kevin added. The younger children didn't fully understand the depth of the moment, but they felt the emotion in the air and moved closer to hug Dorothy. Grandma, can I come here always? Ashley asked. Always, my dear. This will always be your home too, Dorothy promised. That night, alone in her simple home in Hope Heights, she had chosen to continue living there despite being able to move, Dorothy reflected on her journey. 2 years earlier, she had been called useless and abandoned on a roadside by her own children. Today, she was cherished by hundreds of people and had a family that genuinely loved her. The Educational Center had become a national benchmark for humanized education. Delegations from other states came to learn about the project to replicate it in their communities. Dorothy had discovered that her true calling wasn't just being a mother or teacher, but being a channel for social transformation. Every child who passed through the center carried away not only knowledge, but also a new perspective on their own worth. Tyler, now her official grandson through symbolic adoption, had become a young teacher who inspired other children. Jennifer had transformed into a respected educator. Kevin had found his calling and rebuilt his family. Even the Hope Heights community had been transformed. The neighborhood was now known as an example of solidarity and social development. Dorothy picked up a photo of the family gathered during the party and placed it on her nightstand. In the picture were her, Jennifer, Tyler, Kevin, Karen, and the 2 youngest grandchildren, all smiling and hugging. Margaret, she said, looking up at the sky. Thank you for giving me the means to discover who I truly am. The next day, a surprise awaited Dorothy at the center. A group of entrepreneurs from New York had arrived to propose a national partnership. Mrs. Dorothy, we want to create the national network of Margaret Henderson Educational Centers. Your model will be replicated in 100 cities, proposed the representative. But I don't know if I could coordinate something so large, said Dorothy hesitantly. You would be the honorary president. Each center would be autonomous but would follow your educational principles, explained the entrepreneur. The proposal was tempting, but Dorothy wanted to ensure her values were preserved. What would the mandatory principles be? Asked Dorothy. Humanized education, individualized attention, intergenerational integration, and always preferably in underprivileged communities, listed the entrepreneur. And the financial aspect? Asked Mr. Harold Thompson. Each center would be sustainable through public-private partnerships, but always maintaining free services for the community served, explained the entrepreneur. Dorothy asked for time to think. The idea of multiplying her work across the country was exciting but also daunting. Grandma Dorothy, imagine how many children you can help, said Tyler, excited about the possibility. It's true, Mom. Your project can transform thousands of lives, agreed Kevin. Mrs. Dorothy, you've created something very special here. It deserves to be shared with more people, opined Jennifer. After a week of reflection and conversations with the entire team, Dorothy made her decision. I accept the proposal, but with a few conditions, announced Dorothy at the meeting with the entrepreneurs. What conditions? Asked the representative. First, all centers must have at least one professional from the local community in coordination. Second, activities must always include elderly people from the area. Third, no center can charge tuition from the families served, listed Dorothy. We agree with everything. These conditions align with our social vision, accepted the entrepreneur. The signing of the agreement took place at the center in Franklin itself, with the presence of state authorities and representatives from the national press. Dorothy was interviewed by various media outlets, always emphasizing that the true credit for the project belonged to the community that had embraced the idea. I just planted a seed. The garden that grew was the work of many hands and hearts, said Dorothy in a television interview. From that moment on, Dorothy began traveling across the country visiting the cities where new centers were being established. Always accompanied by Jennifer and sometimes by Tyler, she guided the local teams on the educational methods. Kevin took on the technical coordination of all centers, developing computerized systems to track the progress of each unit. Mum, we're impacting the lives of over 10,000 children in 50 cities, reported Kevin proudly. What a great responsibility. I hope we're doing everything right, said Dorothy, always humble. We are, Mum. The reports show significant improvement in school performance and self-esteem of the children served, reassured Kevin. Tyler, now 12 years old, had become a sort of ambassador for the centers. He traveled with Dorothy to the openings and always gave a speech about the importance of education. Grandma Dorothy taught me that everyone is capable of learning. They just need someone who believes, Tyler would say in his little talks. 3 years after the first opening, Dorothy was invited to receive an honor at Congress. The Educational Centers project had caught the attention of politicians interested in public education policies. Mrs. Dorothy, could you advise the government on creating educational policies for the elderly? Asked a congressman. I would be honored, but my experience is practical, not theoretical, Dorothy replied modestly. It's exactly that practical experience we need, insisted the congressman. Dorothy agreed to join an advisory board on intergenerational education, contributing her experience to shaping national policies. During one of these trips to Washington, Dorothy received an unexpected call. It was Sharon, her daughter, with whom she hadn't spoken in over 3 years. Mom, can I talk to you? Sharon asked with a choked voice. What do you want, Sharon? Dorothy inquired cautiously. I want to apologize, for real, Sharon said, crying. Sharon, you've had many chances to apologize before, Dorothy responded. I know, Mom, but this time is different. I have cancer, and when you face death, you see life differently, Sharon revealed. The news shocked Dorothy. Despite all the hurt, Sharon was still her daughter, and knowing she was ill touched her maternal heart. How are you? What did the doctors say? Dorothy asked, her voice shifting to a motherly tone. It's breast cancer, it's advanced, but there's still hope with treatment, Sharon explained. And how can I help? Dorothy offered instinctively. I just wanted your forgiveness, Mom. I can't start treatment carrying this guilt, Sharon pleaded. Dorothy remained silent for a few moments. The wound of abandonment still existed, but her heart had learned to forgive. I forgive you, Sharon, and I'll pray for your recovery, Dorothy said sincerely. Thank you, Mum. This means more than you know, Sharon said, crying. Do you want me to come visit you? Dorothy offered. I'd love that if it's not too much to ask, Sharon accepted humbly. Dorothy cancelled her appointments and returned to Tennessee. She found Sharon at the Atlanta hospital, visibly weakened by chemotherapy treatment. Hi, Mom, Sharon said with a weak smile. Hi, my daughter, Dorothy replied, hugging her tenderly. They talked for hours. Sharon apologized in detail for every hurt she had caused, acknowledging her mistakes and selfishness. Mum, seeing what you've built, I understand we were always the useless ones, not you, Sharon said. No one is useless, Sharon. We all have our worth and our purpose, Dorothy replied wisely. Then what's my purpose? Sharon asked. Maybe it's to teach others that it's never too late to change, to apologize, to be a better person, Dorothy suggested. Sharon spent 2 months in intensive treatment. Dorothy visited her weekly, always bringing news from the center and photos of the children. Look here, this girl learned to read at 10 years old. Now she's helping other children, Dorothy showed, sharing the joys of her work. You're amazing, Mom. You turned pain into love, abandonment into welcome, Sharon reflected. During one of these visits, Sharon asked to see the center and the people who cared for Dorothy. I want to meet your real family, Mom, Sharon said. Dorothy organized a special visit. Sharon, still weak but determined, went to see the Margaret Henderson Educational Center. Tyler greeted her with curiosity and some suspicion. Are you one of Grandma Dorothy's mean daughters? Tyler asked directly. I was, yes, but I'm trying to be better, Sharon admitted honestly. Why were you mean to her? Tyler continued. Because we were selfish and didn't appreciate the love she gave us, Sharon explained. The honest answer impressed Tyler. Gradually, during the visit, he began to lose his fear and even showed Sharon some of his drawings. Jennifer received Sharon politely but without excessive warmth. The wound of Dorothy's abandonment was still fresh in everyone's memory. Jennifer, thank you for taking care of my mother when we abandoned her, Sharon said sincerely. I didn't take care of her. She took care of us, Jennifer replied diplomatically. Kevin was surprised to see his sister at the center. They hadn't spoken in years since the court case. Sharon, what are you doing here? Asked Kevin. I came to ask for forgiveness and learn about Mom's work, Sharon replied. Are you okay? You look different, observed Kevin, noticing his sister's weakened appearance. Sharon told him about the cancer and her reflections during treatment. Kevin was visibly shaken by the news. Sharon, I'm so sorry. If you need anything, offered Kevin, I just need you to keep taking care of Mom. She deserves all the love in the world, said Sharon. Sharon's visit to the center caused a subtle but noticeable shift in the family dynamic. Dorothy began including her daughter in her prayers and even visited her more frequently. Tyler developed a special curiosity about Sharon. He asked questions about what she was like as a child and whether she had always been mean. Grandma Dorothy, was Sharon mean when she was little like me? Tyler would ask. No, my dear. She was a sweet and caring girl. Sometimes people change when they grow up, Dorothy replied. But is she becoming good again now? Continued Tyler. It seems so. Difficulties sometimes teach us to be better people, Dorothy explained. 2 months later, Sharon received news that the treatment was working. The tumors had significantly shrunk, and the chances of recovery were high. Mum, the doctors said I'm going to get better, Sharon announced emotionally over the phone. What joy, my daughter. God is very good, Dorothy replied, genuinely happy. Mom, can I ask you something? Sharon said hesitantly. Go ahead, Dorothy answered. When I'm better, can I help at the center? I want to do something useful with my life, Sharon requested. The question surprised Dorothy. She had never imagined Sharon might be interested in social work. What would you like to do? Dorothy asked, interested. I don't know yet. Maybe talk to other women going through cancer treatment, or help with administrative matters, Sharon suggested. When you're better, we'll talk about it, Dorothy promised. 6 months later, Sharon was officially cured. She had completely changed, both physically and emotionally. The experience with the illness had transformed her into a more humble and empathetic person. Mum, can I start working at the center as a volunteer? Sharon asked. Of course, my daughter, but you'll have to prove your commitment to the whole team, Dorothy cautioned. I understand. I know I need to earn everyone's trust, Sharon accepted. Sharon started with simple tasks, cleaning, organizing, preparing materials. She never complained about any task and always made herself available. Tyler watched her working and gradually lost his distrust. Grandma Dorothy, Sharon really isn't mean anymore, Tyler declared after a few weeks. What makes you think that? Dorothy asked. She cleans the bathroom without anyone telling her to. Mean people don't do that, Tyler concluded with childlike logic. Jennifer also began to accept Sharon better when she saw her genuine dedication to the work. Mrs. Dorothy, your daughter is trying very hard. I think the change is real, Jennifer commented. People can change, Jennifer. Sometimes they just need the right encouragement, Dorothy replied. Kevin was happy to see the family coming together again. He had served as a bridge between everyone and now saw the fruits of his own transformation, inspiring his sister's change. Mom, do you think Brian can change too? Asked Kevin. I don't know, son. Each person has their own time and way of learning, replied Dorothy. He's in a very difficult situation, lost everything because of debts, informed Kevin. And where is he now? Asked Dorothy. Living in a cheap boarding house in Atlanta. Too proud to ask for help, said Kevin. Perhaps life is teaching him humility too, Dorothy philosophized. Indeed, Brian was going through great difficulties. He had lost his house, car, and even his job because of accumulated debts. He lived alone in a simple boarding house and worked as a freelance salesman. One morning, He unexpectedly appeared at the educational center. He was thinner, wearing simple clothes and with a humble appearance that contrasted with his former arrogance. "Mom?" he said simply upon meeting Dorothy in the center's courtyard. "Brian," replied Dorothy, surprised by the visit. "Can I talk to you?" Brian asked humbly. "Of course." "Let's go to my office," said Dorothy. They sat facing each other and Brian remained silent for a few minutes, clearly struggling to find the right words. "Mom, I came to ask for forgiveness," he finally said. "Brian," began Dorothy. "No, Mom. Let me speak first." "I need to speak," Brian interrupted. "Then speak," said Dorothy, settling in to listen. "I was the worst son in the world. I was the one who convinced Sharon to abandon you on the road. I was the one who called you deadweight. And I did all that because I was angry about being poor again," confessed Brian, tears beginning to fall. "Continue," said Dorothy, maintaining her composure. "When I learned about the inheritance, I thought I could finally be rich. I didn't care about you, I only wanted the money. And now I've lost everything anyway," continued Brian. "And what has that taught you?" asked Dorothy. "That money doesn't bring happiness, that you can't buy family, that the love you gave us was more valuable than any inheritance," said Brian, crying openly. Dorothy looked at the broken man before her. It was hard to reconcile this image with that of the arrogant son who had abandoned her. "Brian, you hurt my heart deeply," Dorothy said honestly. "I know, Mom, and I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I needed to try," said Brian. "And what do you want now?" asked Dorothy. "Only your forgiveness. I don't want money. I don't want inheritance. I just wanted to die knowing you don't hate me," said Brian. "I never hated you, Brian. I was hurt, disappointed, but I never hated you," Dorothy said sincerely. "So you forgive me?" Brian asked hopefully. "I forgive you, my son. But forgiving doesn't mean things go back to how they were before," explained Dorothy. "I understand. I just wanted your forgiveness," said Brian, relieved. At that moment, Tyler appeared in the office looking for Dorothy. "Grandma Dorothy, you need to see—" Tyler stopped upon seeing Brian. "Who are you?" "This is Brian, another son of mine," introduced Dorothy. "Oh, another one of the mean children," Tyler said directly. Brian looked at the boy and then at Dorothy, seeing the obvious affection between them. "It's true, I was very mean to your grandma," Brian admitted to Tyler. "Why?" asked Tyler curiously. "Because I was greedy and selfish. I didn't know how to value her love," explained Brian. "And now you're not mean anymore?" asked Tyler, echoing the same question he had asked Sharon. "I'm trying not to be, but it's hard after doing so many bad things," Brian answered honestly. Tyler observed Brian carefully for a few moments. "You look sad," the boy observed. "I am sad. I'm sad because I was mean to the kindest person in the world," admitted Brian. The emotional sincerity of Brian touched Tyler. The boy approached him. "Grandma Dorothy is really good. She taught me that everyone can improve if they really try," said Tyler. "Do you think she would teach me to be better too?" asked Brian. "She teaches everyone who wants to learn," Tyler replied with certainty. Brian looked at Dorothy with a silent question in his eyes. "Brian, if you really want to change, you can start by helping here at the center, but you'll have to prove your sincerity through actions, not words," offered Dorothy. "I'll accept anything, Mum. I just want a chance to do something good in life," said Brian. "Then show up here tomorrow at 7 in the morning. Be ready to work," said Dorothy. "Thank you, Mom. You won't regret it," promised Brian. "Don't make promises, Brian, just work," advised Dorothy. The next day, Brian showed up punctually at the center. He was nervous, knowing he would have to face the distrust of everyone who knew his story. Jennifer greeted him with professional coldness, explaining the basic tasks he could perform. "I'll help with cleaning and organizing. Nothing involving contact with the children yet," said Jennifer firmly. "I understand completely," Brian accepted humbly. Kevin was surprised to see his brother at the center, but also hopeful that the family could finally reconcile. "Brian, it's great that you decided to change," said Kevin. "I hope I can be half the man you've become," Brian replied sincerely. Sharon hugged her brother emotionally. She knew better than anyone what it meant to seek redemption. "Brian, if I could change, you can too," encouraged Sharon. "You almost died to learn. I just got poor, Brian compared. Sometimes that's what we need, to lose everything to find what really matters, Sharon philosophized. Brian's first weeks at the center were challenging. He wasn't used to manual labor and had to deal with constant distrust from people. But he persevered. He arrived early, worked without complaining, and tried to be helpful in any task they gave him. Tyler watched him working with curiosity. Gradually, the boy began talking to him. "Brian, why were you mean before?" asked Tyler one day. "Because I thought money was the most important thing in the world," replied Brian. "Isn't it?" asked Tyler. "No. The most important thing is having people who truly care about us," explained Brian. "Like Grandma Dorothy cares about me," asked Tyler. "Exactly. And she cared about me too, but I was too foolish to realize it," said Brian. After 2 months of dedicated work, Dorothy decided to give Brian more responsibilities. "You can start helping with computer maintenance. Kevin said you understand electronics," said Dorothy. "I'd love to help." "Thank you for the trust, Mom," said Brian, moved. "Trust is built gradually, Brian. You're on the right path," said Dorothy. With all 3 children working at the center, Dorothy finally had the reunited family she had always dreamed of. But it was a different family based on mutual respect and teamwork. Tyler had grown accustomed to the presence of all 3 and even played with them occasionally. For him, they had stopped being the mean kids and had become just part of the center's team. "Grandma Dorothy, now you have lots of children," observed Tyler. "How so?" asked Dorothy. "There's Kevin, Sharon, and Brian, and there's me and my mom too, and Mr. Harold, and even Mr. Anthony. Everyone is your family," explained Tyler. The boy's observation deeply touched Dorothy. It was true. She had built a much larger and more loving family than she had ever imagined possible. At the end of that year, the Margaret Henderson Educational Center organized its largest year-end celebration. Over 1,000 people attended, including officials, educators, served families, and volunteers. Dorothy was honored with several awards, including a Medal of Honor for Educational Merit granted by the federal government. "Mrs. Dorothy, on behalf of all the families served by the educational centers, we want to thank you for turning your pain into hope for so many children," said a representative of the families. During her acceptance speech, Dorothy reflected on the entire journey. 4 years ago, I was being abandoned on a roadside, considered useless by my own children, Dorothy began, moving the audience. Today, I am here, surrounded by hundreds of people who consider me part of their families. I learned that family isn't defined by blood, but by love, respect, and mutual care, she continued. My biological children are here today, not because they have to be, but because they chose to be better people. And that is more valuable than any inheritance, said Dorothy, looking at Kevin, Sharon, and Brian. But most of all, I learned that it's never too late to start over, to find a new purpose, to build something beautiful from the ashes, concluded Dorothy. The audience rose in an emotional ovation that lasted several minutes. Tyler went up on stage and gave Dorothy a special gift, an album with photos of all the children who had passed through the center, each with a heartfelt message. Grandma Dorothy, this album is so you never forget that you changed the lives of all these children, said Tyler. Dorothy flipped through the album with tears in her eyes. Each photo represented a transformed life, a child who had discovered their potential, a family that had found hope. This is the greatest treasure I could receive, said Dorothy emotionally. That night, after the celebration, Dorothy gathered her whole family in her simple home in Hope Heights. Present were Jennifer, Tyler, Kevin with Karen and the grandchildren, Sharon and Brian. I wanted to thank all of you for showing me that family love can be built, chosen and nurtured, said Dorothy. We're the ones who should thank you, Mom. You taught us what forgiveness, second chances and unconditional love are, replied Kevin. And you showed us that it's never too late to change and be a better person, added Sharon. You gave me a family when I needed it most, said Jennifer, and taught me that real grandmas are the ones who choose to love us, finished Tyler. Brian, who was still struggling with the emotion of being accepted back, could only say, Thank you for not giving up on me, Mom. Mr. Harold Thompson, who had joined them, raised a toast to Mrs. Dorothy, who taught us that family is what we build with love, not what we receive by chance. Everyone raised their glasses, and Tyler his glass of juice, and toasted. "To family?" they said in unison. That night, Dorothy lay in her simple bed, looking out the window at the quiet street of Hope Heights. Outside, she could see Jennifer and Tyler's house, where a light was still on. She thought about the entire journey, the painful abandonment, the discovery of a new family, the building of the educational center, the reconciliation with her children, and most of all, the discovery that her life had a much greater purpose than she had imagined. At 76 years old, Dorothy had found her true calling. It wasn't just about being a mother or a teacher, but being an instrument of social transformation, a bridge between generations, an example that it's never too late to start over. The Margaret Henderson Educational Center now operated in over 200 cities, serving thousands of children and elderly. But for Dorothy, the most important thing wasn't the numbers, it was the lives transformed one by one. Every child who learned to read, every elderly person who found a new purpose, every family that discovered the value of education, all of this justified the pain of abandonment she had suffered. Dorothy picked up the album Tyler had given her and once again flipped through the pictures of the children. In each smiling little face she saw a better future, a fairer society, a world where no one would be called useless. "Margaret," she whispered to her sister, looking at a photo of her she kept by the bedside, "your legacy has multiplied far beyond what you could have imagined. Thank you for making all of this possible." A gentle breeze came in through the window, making the curtains dance. Dorothy felt a deep peace taking over her heart. She had found her true family, her life's purpose, and genuine happiness. Most importantly, she had proven to herself and to the world that no one is useless as long as there is love to give and lives to transform. The next morning, as every day for the past 4 years, Dorothy woke up excited for another day of work at the center. Tyler was already at the door, ready to accompany her, with his radiant smile and contagious energy. "Good morning, Grandma Dorothy. Ready for another day of changing the world?" asked Tyler. "Always ready, my love, always ready," replied Dorothy, taking the boy's hand. Together they walked through the streets of Hope Heights toward the center, greeting neighbors, watching children going to school, and elderly people chatting on their porches. It was a simple, everyday scene, but for Dorothy, it represented everything most precious in life: purpose, love, and the certainty that each day offers a new opportunity to make a difference in someone's life. The morning sun lit the path ahead, promising another day of possibilities, learning, and joy at the Margaret Henderson Educational Center. And Dorothy knew that regardless of what the future held, she had fulfilled her most important mission, proving that true love always finds a way, that family is built with dedication and care, and that it is never, ever too late to start over. End of story. Now we want to know your opinion about this touching story. What did you think of Dorothy's transformation and reconciliation with her children? Do you believe people can really change like Kevin, Sharon, and Brian changed? Tell us in the comments which part of the story touched your heart the most. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that will move and inspire you.